What's going on, guys? Welcome to another Doctor Who Classic Review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the third Doctor Jon Pertwee story, The Ambassadors of Death. This is the third story of Season 7, a season which only has 4 stories in it. The only one I haven't reviewed so far after this will be Inferno, which I do also have on DVD, so I'll be doing that one in the near future, but today we're looking at The Ambassadors of Death. So this is generally regarded as the weakest of Season 7, however still regarded as a very good story because Season 7 is just regarded as such a high episoding, that doesn't make any sense. It's regarded as a really good season. So anyway, this is The Ambassadors of Death by David Whittaker, Malcolm Hulke and Trevor Ray. Something has gone seriously wrong with Mars Probe 7. With no contact from the astronauts since the rocket started its return journey from Mars, Space Control is now extremely worried about the fate of the crew. A rescue mission recovers something, but whatever it is, it certainly isn't human. To find out what has happened to the astronauts, the Doctor must head into space without the TARDIS. So yeah, nice little plot synopsis on the back of the DVD there. And yeah, it's a spacey story. I do quite like these ones, you know. We're on Earth, but we also have a very spacey element to it, of course, with a lot of Jon Pertwee's earlier stuff up until season 10 really, and like partway through season 10. The third Doctor was condemned to being on Earth all the time because, you know, the Time Lords trapped him on Earth after the events of the War Games. So yeah, it's interesting to have these ones that aren't just focused on Earth. They do go a bit, you know, outside of, you know, into space and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting story because of that. But anyway, let's get on with this one, starting off with the cast. Alright, so of course we've got Jon Pertwee as the third Doctor. Really, really good. I very much like Jon Pertwee as a Doctor in general, and in this episode, yeah, he's very good. I don't think there's anything too kind of, you know, there's no specific scenes to really kind of go on about and say that are really, really good. But you know, there's definitely nothing to say that's, you know, with him being bad at all. Yeah, there's not really anything. There's not really anything bad or good to say. Jon Pertwee's very, very good in this one. The third Doctor's just all round very good in this one. And yeah, just not really much else to say apart from that. Then you've got Caroline John as Liz Shaw. I do quite like Liz Shaw in this one. Liz is one of those companions that obviously we only got her for season 7, so we only had her for 4 stories. Which is a bit of a disappointment. I think, you know, in the other 2 that I've done so far, being Spearhead from Space and the Silurians, I do like Liz Shaw, but she hasn't really blown me away. Whereas in this one, I still won't say she's really blown me away, but I do very much like her in this one. She gets a bit more to do by herself without the Doctor or the Brigadier being there. You know, she kind of gets kidnapped by that other group who are holding the alien astronauts hostage. Basically, they're keeping them in that room, you know, with all the radiation getting pumped into them to kind of figure out what they are and what they could do. She gets captured by them, and she has a lot of good moments there, you know, communicating with all the people down there, with that guy who ends up getting killed because he knows that there's something not right going on here. He's not happy with it, so he tries to, you know, let the Brigadier and the Doctor know, but, you know, ends up getting killed. I like her moments with him. Just altogether, I think Caroline John does a very, very good job with this one, and Liz Shaw is quite an interesting character in this one. And then the other character I want to talk about, because I always talk about him when he is here, because he's basically a companion, even though on Wikipedia it doesn't actually state him as a companion. We've got Nicholas Courtney as Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. I really do like the Brigadier. I think he's very good. Makes a lot of silly decisions sometimes. You know, like for instance, decisions that aren't very good, like, you know, in the Silurians, where at the end he decides to blow up the Silurians even after they've kind of made peace with each other. But then it makes sense because he's a soldier. He does everything with caution, you know. He's like, maybe we've made peace now, but this could always come back and bite us in the ass later, so let's just kill him and have it done with. In this one, there's not so much of that actually. He's more on the Doctor's side than usual with the things he's talking about in this one, so yeah, I very much do like the Brigadier. Alright, let's get on to the good and the bad, starting off with the good. The opening titles had a scene before the episode title was shown. Now, is this something that I'm just missing in my mind, or was this a thing only for this story? Now, I've seen Spearhead from Space a few times, and I'm fairly certain from memory this didn't happen. If it did, I would have made a note of it when I did my review. And I'd seen Spearhead from Space previously, before doing the review. Then with the Silurians, once again, that was actually my first time watching it when I did the review. But if it did do this different opening titles thing, I would have mentioned it. I would have kind of twigged on, because with this one, as soon as I watched it, as soon as I saw the titles, I was like, that's different. And I literally, the first thing I wrote down after the titles played was I wrote this down in my notes, because I always make notes on these videos so I know what to talk about. Yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. Does this happen in Inferno? I have actually seen Inferno before, but I can't really remember it at all because it was so long ago when I watched it. So I'm interested to see if it happens again with that, if it happens again with any other stories of the classic series, because I haven't seen a lot of season 8 or 9 as well. So maybe it does happen again, or maybe it's just something for this episode in particular. This story in particular. I just thought it was an interesting thing that I had jotted down. The shootout between Unit and the warehouse people, you know, all the people in the warehouse in episode 1. Yeah, when you have Unit, which we have Unit quite a lot in Jon Pertwee's stuff, especially his earlier stuff from like season 7 to like 10. We have a lot of shooting and stuff, because obviously they're Unit, they're a military force, they have guns, they kind of go guns blazing a lot of the time, which the Doctor doesn't really agree with most of the time. But you know, I really like this one in particular, because there was a really good shootout in part 1. There was a couple in, you know, parts 2 and 3 and stuff as well, mostly earlier on, that they had the big shooting action scenes, and I think they were just interesting. There was some nice music in the background that just fitted it really well, some very good direction and camera work, especially, you know, considering this is what, 1970. Some very, very good direction. I really like that. And yeah, I just quite like the shootout scenes, because something that, especially nowadays, we don't really get in Doctor Who as much. You know, not these big shootouts really. So yeah, I just found it quite interesting. The Doctor tricking the truck thieves, I thought that was cool. You know, when the truck came, they were getting the Mars, what's it? No, not Mars probe. The other one. Oh, what's it called? Recovery 7? Is that it? Mars Probe 7? What? I think it's Recovery 7, isn't it? The one that they actually got back. They were taking it back on a truck to the space station, and people from, I think it was from that warehouse, you know, the people that were you know, that wanted to take the aliens on board, because they knew there were aliens on board. They wanted to take them. They took the truck, but then the Doctor managed to trick them by getting them to, you know, he parked his car in the middle of the road and was like, oh, my car's broken down, can you give me a hand pushing it? Made him push it over and then pressed a button so that they got stuck to his car for a while. I thought that was quite funny and just an interesting little thing. So then the Doctor drove away in the truck and left them there with his car. So I thought that was a pretty funny little scene. The astronauts are actually pretty scary. We only get to see the actual, like, what they look like underneath the helmets, I think once. We only really get to see it once, and it's very brief. They're kind of blue and a little bit weird looking. They're human looking, but they look, I mean, with the radiation, they're kind of a bluey green. On the back of the DVD, it shows them as much more green. In the episode, I found that they're actually a bit more blue than the back of the DVD shows them. But yeah, we got to see them very briefly like that. But just them walking around with the helmets on, just, you know, they just look like humans, because they've got the helmets. They do talk eventually, but for most of the story they don't talk. But the way they walk around, they kind of have this robotic zombie sort of walk about them, and I love how when they touch things, you know, as soon as they touch things, I don't know if it's the radiation or something, it just basically kills people instantly. They can like blow up, they like, you know, got into a safe, it just kind of blew up. They got through a gate by just touching the lock and it exploded. And you know, I think just the look of them, the fact that they just kind of walk towards you slowly, they actually remind me quite a lot of the Vashta Nerada. You know, these people in suits slowly walking towards you in this creepy way. So they remind me of the Vashta Nerada in that way from the new series. And yeah, I just think they're actually pretty creepy. The Doctor being impatient before taking off in the rocket, I love that. It's nice to see the Doctor being a bit patient. I've heard a lot of people say that Matt Smith's 11th Doctor was impatient quite a lot, and people don't, like, I've heard a lot of people say they don't like that. But then you've got to remember, we go back to the 3rd Doctor here, and he had his impatient moments when he was getting ready to take off in the rocket. They had to do all the pre-takeoff kind of tests and stuff and checks, and he was being very impatient. He's like, how long is this going to take? Can we just get up there already? I found it interesting that he was being impatient. It's something that the new series, it's not something that just Matt Smith's Doctors started with, what I hear all the time. Nah, the third Doctor had it as well. So, and I mean, there's plenty of other Doctors that have had their impatient moments, so I just found that pretty funny and interesting. And then finally, briefly mentioned this before, lots of action and good direction throughout. I think this was one of the better directed episodes, especially for the time it was made and released. It was a really enjoyable episode, even though it was 7 parts long, and yeah, perhaps a bit slow in places. The way it was shot, directed, and just the way it kind of kept flowing, it just looked, it did keep me engaged throughout pretty much the whole thing. So yeah, I think that's just really good direction on that part. Alright, so a couple of bad things, but nothing major at all. Some of the rocket taking off and landing scenes are a bit slow. I felt like this episode, even being 7 parts, wasn't too slow. My main criticism with the Silurians was that I did feel like it was a bit slow. It was fairly padded at times. That was also a 7-parter. But this one, I do feel like it's slow in places, like I said, with the rocket taking off and landing, and some of those scenes I felt were a bit slow. You know, like in part 1 where they were doing this now. I felt like that went on for a bit too long, but apart from that, not really anything to moan about there, just a little slow in places. And then the only other thing is that the ending was a bit quick for me, by just stopping the Sergeant's broadcast. You know, he was going to broadcast to the world that this is happening, we need to destroy these aliens, we need to destroy this ship, this, you know, in space with the Mars spaceship thing. We need to destroy them because they're going to, you know, come and invade us or whatever. I thought it was a bit quick how the Doctor literally just came in at the last second, said, "You're under arrest." Well, Brigadier said, "You're under arrest." He just was like, "Alright, I'm under arrest," walked off, and then it was alright. They sent the 3 aliens back up there and presumably got the 3 astronauts back onto Earth again. So I did feel like it was a bit of a quick and bit of an anticlimactic end. Alright, so the Ambassadors of Death, what did I think? I actually really enjoyed it. I'm really happy with this one. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I can't give it a 10 because those couple of little nitpicks there do bring it down a bit, mainly the ending being a bit quick. The slow points don't bother me as much, but I thought because of that, I'll put it down to a 9 out of 10. So that actually does mean I prefer it ever so slightly over Doctor Who and the Silurians, which I initially gave a 9 out of 10, but I've soon put that down to, I think I've got like an 8 out of 10 at the moment. I do think the Silurians is a little bit overrated, but yeah, the Ambassadors of Death, 9 out of 10. I actually did really enjoy it. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please go ahead, like and subscribe. Go down into the description and follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you guys in the next video.